You're listening to today's inspirational message on the Proverbs with Kurt Bjorklund.
In Proverbs, there is the constant warning against being a scoffer. Some translations call it a mocker. But today I want to focus on something that's a little perplexing when you first read through Proverbs 9, and that is in verse 8, it says this: "Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you." And so at first you may say, well, wait, what am I supposed to reprove somebody or not reprove somebody? And obviously the real difference here is that if somebody's a scoffer, then you are not to reprove them because they'll ultimately just hate you. In fact, verse 7 says a scoffer, when you correct him or her, will abuse you basically verbally. And he who reproves a wicked man incurs injury. Robert Alter translation says is maimed in a sense. And so the idea is when you reprove somebody who is as the text that we looked at yesterday in terms of a scoffer, somebody who's a lazim, which is the scoffer, somebody who scorns, mocks, speaks indirectly, is cynical, defiant, they will hate you. But when you reprove a wise person, they'll love you. And so the issue here is really twofold. One is, how do you receive rebuke? Because it is probably the truest tell as to whether you are wise or you are a scoffer in Proverbs. So if, for example, when your spouse comes to you and says, here's something that I want to address with you, and you get angry and mock and turn it around, you are not being wise, you're being foolish. If your boss, your employee, your coworker comes to you and says, when you do this, it doesn't work, and all you do is have defenses, then what you're doing is you're mocking rather than choosing to be wise. When your child comes to you and says, when you do this, it doesn't work, and here's why, you're not being wise, you're being a scoffer. And so the first question is, how do you respond to critique and criticism and reproof? And then secondly, it's really to say, learn how to discern what somebody's response will be before you put yourself in a place to put yourself out there and giving rebuke. And so what that means is that there are times you will see something clearly and be able to speak into it. But even with somebody you're close to and you want their best, if they are in a place of mocking, and it may be different on different issues, by the way, then you may say, I'm going to choose not to talk about this because I know it's not going to be well received, and that is actually wisdom, not a lack of courage. And sometimes you will find somebody who's wide open to your input, and that is, in that instance at least, those instances, somebody who's being wise. And when you give to them instruction, reproof, they will love you for it, is what the text says. Verse 9 of chapter 9, give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach the righteous man, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. And then wisdom goes on and talks about how it multiplies days. And so you have the possibility of understanding and bringing wisdom to other people's lives and to receiving it. And so the question that I have today is, one, how do you decide when and when not to give critique, or do you just give it freely, willy-nilly? And in some ways, the response of the person is to be weighed significantly. And then secondly, how do you receive criticism? Are you willing to hear the words that people bring into your life? It is a hallmark of wisdom. And if you think about this spiritually, in the broader context, when do we become receptive to God? When we are corrected by the law, when we're driven to grace because of hearing the law. And when do we reject God? It's when we say, I don't need God's law, or I already do it, therefore it doesn't matter. There's a humility that goes into saying, I will receive what you have to offer and say. So today I want to be the kind of person who receives critique and is wise in where and how and to whom I give it.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.